Welcome, everybody. Every single Wednesday night, I bring you someone that has dedicated their life to cryptocurrency, trading, making their lives better, and really just going after it. This young gentleman, I've been watching for a few years now. I'm really, really impressed and proud of what he's been doing. And he could teach you a lot. And he has a good mindset. He tackles the charts basically every single day. And he's definitely someone you want to check out. Evan Aldo, man, thank you so much for coming on to the live stream today and jumping on into the price report.
Oh man, it's an honor, Sam. Always, really appreciate you having me on. Always an honor to be on your channel. I'm really thankful. Great being here. I'm real excited.
Cool, man. So, with the battles of the ups and downs of the market, how have you been doing? Have you been gobbling up those altcoins? Did you ever make a low ETH buy? What are your plans kind of going into 2024?
So yeah, I mean, I was mainly for a lot of this year mainly DCing into Bitcoin. Mainly Bitcoin was the main thing because the majority of altcoins, other than Solana, other than a lot of the newer coins that have come out, a lot of the old and faithful altcoins, big market caps such as Cardano, Matic, BNB, a lot of them have bled against Bitcoin, especially Ethereum, throughout the past year. Now, Ethereum went down, I think, a total of around 40% against Bitcoin. So my view here was that the same thing would happen that happened in 2019. Bitcoin, crypto as a whole is this one unique kind of 4-year cycle that no other asset class really has. And following that cycle, 2019 would be like 2023, where the majority of altcoins, now I know people are going to say, there's this altcoin that just came out 6 months
Yeah,
ago, did better in
low
Bitcoin,
caps.
Solana, sure. Some of them did do better in Bitcoin, but the majority of them have bled against Bitcoin, especially Ethereum, which was 40% over the last year, bled against Bitcoin. And it did not bottom out until Bitcoin last time in September of 2019. Now, very recently, basically in October, I just started to dilly-dally, start converting a little bit of Bitcoin over into Ethereum and putting fresh money into Ethereum because I'm looking at a lot of big places where Ethereum could potentially bottom out against Bitcoin. On the charts, it looks very
You want to show
similar.
you got an ETH
Yeah,
Bitcoin
I'll
chart
show
there?
you real quick. I'll show you something real
Let's
quick. I
see
mean,
what
it
you got.
looks similar. I don't want to take up the chart for the whole thing, but it looks similar when I go to, let me just show you right here. Let's just go to our Ethereum versus Bitcoin chart. And the main thing that I've been looking at right here, I believe, is on the 2-week. Let me just go on auto here and get you right there. So if we look at the 2-week, I circled it right here. Now, this was September of 2019, where you bottomed out against Ethereum. Now, 4 years later is approximately where we are right now, and it
Mhm.
has come up. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to continue to outperform Bitcoin. But if you look right here on Market Cipher B, you have a nice deep anchor wave, which I think is a really good place to look, and that's kind of the low we had against Bitcoin in June of 2022. Since then, rallied up a lot. Since then, bled about 40%. I think this is a hell of a great time to be getting into Ethereum, potentially converting some, Bitcoin over into Ethereum. Now, can it bleed more? If we go into a recession, I always like to tell people, anything could happen. If we go into a recession, things get really ugly, sure. It can break down to
Makes
potentially
me
these
feel like we're
points.
gonna hit that level because it's almost like an M pattern up there that could maybe it's like
Yeah,
an elongated M that
there's
I'm looking
always
at
going to
that.
be,
That
yeah.
looks like a great place to set a limit order, right? Where you put like 36, 3,500. I like that.
Yeah, I mean that kind of area right down here, as you could see, if we bleed another, 30%. Now we don't know exactly where Ethereum is going to be if it does come down that much against Bitcoin. I think we could be kind of bottoming out here just because we did, last time over here, unless we get a recession, some type of wrench is thrown in the game. The other thing I want to show you just real quick here is Cardano versus Bitcoin, which looks really good, especially on
Mm.
the weekly. So on Market Cipher. The last time it bottomed out, same place that Ethereum bottomed out against Bitcoin, September of 2019, back here. And this time's a little bit different. See, you just kept coming down. You've bled against Bitcoin about a total of 87%. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot.
Mhm.
And money flow is starting to come up. But here on the weekly, 5 yellow X's in Market Cipher B, look for some sell exhaustion, look for some money flow coming up. This could be the place to potentially get in about 4 years later. And you had some time. I mean, you had some time throughout here to be DCing into, Cardano as opposed to Bitcoin, or converting some Bitcoin into Cardano in these areas. Now, how much you want to convert Bitcoin into Cardano, that's your own,
Mhm.
that's your own kind of, risk
I like
management thing.
I
Yeah.
never convert. Like once I buy Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin. But what I'll do is like recently I bought a
Yeah.
Bitcoin and I said this is the one I'll play with, right? And I sent it to and I know I'm like, all right, I'll do BTC trades with this one.
Hmm.
but if I do a BTC trade, usually I just convert my Tether to Bitcoin like that day, and I'm making a BTC trade. But like once I like today, I bought like $3,000 worth of Bitcoin. That's going to a hardware wallet. I'm not
Sure.
gonna like,
Yeah.
I don't like, because I know about me. Once I start like doing this, because that was like 10 years ago, like, and I just learned my lesson.
Yeah.
Just like keep my baskets kind of separate. It helps me out. But no, 100%. I've always liked your perspective. Many, many times you've been on the same page as me, or I've watched your channel. I've watched you hit a short. I don't know. This morning I called a short. I could see it. Sometimes, man, I'll be honest. If you do it a lot, it's more your emotions that ruin it than anything else. Like the charts are pretty clear on today. Like today, it was like I could see liquidity below us. We had a bear flag. We lost key levels. I'm all about the 200 SMA. Every time I lose it on like a 15 or a 1 hour time frame, 90% chance we're going to go lower to maybe a further 200 SMA
Yep.
on another time frame. And the more I toy with that, and it's amazing how even after years of trading, I see things now in the last 2 months that I didn't see before. And it gives me the heebie-jeebies because I'm wondering what traders that have been trading for 30 years can see. And you almost strip off some of your indicators. Like you can see it more simpler than you could when you first started. I just find that really fascinating. But I've definitely been watching you, man, and I've watched your progression. And one thing I notice about you that I like the most is I'm all about mindset. And one day I was in Miami specifically, and I saw, because I saw your post, and you were, you're talking about, creating the mindset for positivity, right? Directing yourself. I think I saw you go into a cold plunge once.
Yeah.
Was there anyone in your family that inspired that? I got some of that from my family, but I really did reach out into the internet and found that. Where did you begin this process of kind of, building your brain, building yourself stronger?
Oh man, a lot of man, it's just a lot of experience, really. I mean, I don't, kind of surrounding yourself with good people. I've traveled around a lot of different places in the world, lived in a lot of different places. And I think the number one thing too is try to surround yourself with people that are a little bit better than you. I mean, surrounding yourself with people that are a lot better than you is going to be kind of tough. Who wants to hang out with somebody who's, kind of way below them, has had a lot less success. I mean, sometimes you can, but if you kind of surround yourself with people a little bit above you and keep kind of moving up, you can learn more things. And there's certain people too that are very successful and they don't really know exactly why they're really successful. I've met a lot of people like this too. And then I start to realize that the reason they are is because they're just so positive. And whenever you kind of bring up something negative to them, they want to change the subject. They don't want to talk about that. They mainly talk about more positive things. So it's a lot of it's observation. A lot of it's reading books. I've read a few books about law of attraction. I've read books about meditation. I've read a lot of books. So, I know a quote by Naval Ravikant. He said, "There's not really smart and dumb people. There's people that read and people who don't read." So I think it's
Ah, love that.
observational. A lot of it's kind of observational. And ultimately, the quote that everybody probably has heard at one point, you're the average of the five people you surround yourself with. And I think that's very true. And it's not that easy. Like, I'll be real, it's not that easy to just change the people, you kind of surround yourself with, unless you kind of just randomly move across the world. I mean, it's not the easiest thing to do because everybody's kind of used to the same place they're living in, this and that. So it could be kind of hard to do that, right away. But one thing you could do to kind of get a perspective of somebody different is to read books, read a lot of books, read a lot of things that other people have done. You can even watch videos, things of that nature. It's going to take some discipline. Obviously, everything takes some discipline, but you could absolutely do it. And I think I think it'll generally be a pretty joyous process. I think I tell people a lot of times, it's hard to be successful, but it's not that hard. It's hard. I would say it's hard, but it's not that hard. And if you think it's going to be very, 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 very difficult, that's probably going to mess with your mindset a little bit. So yeah.
No, I would say it's hard being broke and it's hard being rich, man. Life is hard no matter what. So you might as well be rich. You know what I mean? You might as well go after
Yeah.
success. Not really like focus on the material, but go after whatever makes you happy. I mean, you kind of talked about my life. I worked a night shift for 6 years. So think about it. I didn't converse with a lot of people, right? So the only people I talked to was the other guy in the night shift. A couple of my good friends from college that I stayed in touch with. So like two of my friends sold the company for like 225 million. So they were like two millionaires in my life, right? And they were
Wow.
close to me, but they were like, "Hey, Sammy, maybe one day, keep trying, And I started the channel. I grew as a person. I did make a lot of gains in cryptocurrency, which gave me freedom, right? I was able to fly to a conference because I wanted to. Now I'm
Yeah.
meeting guys that can take Wednesday off, right? So now I'm bumping into real estate people. Now, like the five closest friends that I have are all worth, a substantial amount of money. And you look back, I'm like,
Right.
how did this happen? And you're like, again, and then it also just happens. My wife met a woman at the park who worked for Harvard. She was like Harvard admission. Her husband was a real estate guy. When I went over, he asked me about a chart. I showed him a chart. It hit where I basically was looking at like a week or two later. Me and him started becoming friends. Next thing you know, we bought some real estate together, right? I took a risk. So like now and it just like, now I look around and I'm like, whoa, but it was stepping out of my comfort zone, man, right? I spent that night shift probably too long because I was afraid to venture out. Like I was living in fear. Like I was subconsciously, you don't think so, but when you really break down and look back on your life, you're like, oh yeah, like I was holding myself back for whatever reason, and for
Yeah.
me, thinking real rich, I remember like sitting in my bathtub reading that book and being like, this book's going to make me a millionaire, but I didn't know how. But I was like, if I got to change the way I think, then I can change my life. Right. And I love that about you, man. And because you're not just all about the charts, like, and people need to hear that, because you can teach people about trading. You can teach people market cyber. You can teach people your style. But honestly, helping them recreate their brain and rewire their brain for success is just another add-on and can only help their trading in the long run. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's also a good avenue. Like, you go that realm, you can also, you could write books, you can inspire other people. People want to hear you talk. I'd go to one of your events like years from now if that's something that you're into, if like,
Yeah.
as because everyone needs a voice of reason and a motivator, man. And the motivators that we listen to now, they're going to get older, right? Like the Grant Cardones and those people 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they're 80 years old. You know what I mean? And there's going to be a new batch of basically, mind rewiring influencers, right? To kind of spread, to keep people getting up every morning, to people going after what they're truly want to dream, a dream life, because no one should live a regular life. I really like, I look back on my old life and I was settling, man. And when you settle, you want to die settling, or do you want to die going for, where basically the highest potentials you can reach? So I really like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm
I
inspired by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think having big goals too, because I see, you see a lot of people, maybe they're, neglecting their health, they're gaining weight, all these type of things. And I think, maybe they're making bad decisions, they're going out, they're partying a lot, they're drinking, they're using drugs, things of that nature. And I think for a lot of those people, if they had like bigger ambitions, bigger goals, they would be a little bit more disciplined. Like when you're just going through, and there's a lot of good careers that are kind of 9 to 5 jobs, but the problem with them is they kind of peak out at that income level. For example, if you're like, I don't know, a doctor or a nurse, after a couple of years, you kind of peak out at the income level and you're kind of able to just stay with those gears, stay in that area. And that's where it kind of gets a little bit complacent and you're afraid to kind of branch out based on what you were saying. And I mean, Napoleon Hill said one of the biggest things that prevents people from branching out is kind of fear of poverty. You're always afraid that you're gonna, fall off. And the thing I like to tell people with that too is like, if you have a skill, if you already have a job, odds are you probably can try something else for 6 months to a year and come back to kind of exactly where you are for maybe even better pay. Like I know of somebody who quit a job, tried to start a business for a year. He was pretty successful, but he just didn't like where it was going, I guess. And he decided to actually sell the business. And then he got another job that paid more and he was doing exactly what he was kind of doing before. So, I mean, some people would say, oh, that's kind of pie in the sky when you quit, for a year or whatever. But you could get back to where you were exactly in that kind of 9 to 5 place very quickly, usually.
Yeah, I find that. Do you have any brothers and sisters? Do you ever are you close with your family? Do you go on trips with them and stuff like that, or?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I do have two siblings. I have a brother and a sister. Yeah, I do see my family. I mean, I'm up with my family right now,
Are you
visiting
the
after
oldest or
the
the
holiday.
youngest of the family?
I'm the youngest. I'm actually the youngest. So yeah, it's a pretty large, kind of Italian family. So yeah, I do. Yeah, so I do have a decent relationship with my siblings. And I try to. We're on kind of different different career paths, different ways. But yeah, it's interesting the conversations and stuff. Yeah.
When I first got into cryptocurrency, my family saw a change in me. Like I all talked about, I tried to get them into it. Got my mom
Yeah.
to buy a Bitcoin at 11,000. Bought my older sister; she eventually bought
Uh,
50,000. But then my twin sister didn't. Like, I couldn't. And it's Did you ever find like people just noticed that there was something different about Evan? Like he's kind of into this crypto thing now, and or were they all about it too? Like, was it? It depends on the family. It depends on the situation. It seems like it was positive, but it always makes us unique, right? When we come home and start talking about cryptocurrency, Ethereum, AGI.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when you're trying to, go for something, I'd say when you're trying to do something big, you don't really want to talk about it too much. You don't really want to talk about too much of what you're manifesting, unless like you're talking to it about somebody who already achieved what you're trying to achieve, because a lot of times, like, you know, not to knock anybody or put anybody down, but I hear so many people that don't really have any experience in a certain field, and they're talking all about it. You know, they're talking all about like this opinion. Like, I remember at the and I mean, I kind of thought this too. I kind of thought when Bitcoin was at 16K about a year ago, it would go a little bit lower, maybe 12K or something like that. And I remember like I was sitting like in, I think the not first class, but like the seats you have to pay a bit extra for in coach, and talking to like one of the flight attendants. I think she asked me like what I did, and I said, oh, crypto. She's like, I know so many people have lost money with that.
That's the
You know,
first thing you hear a
and
lot. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, you know, you're gonna hear a lot of people, and it's not that they're dumb. It's not that you're better than them. It's that they just don't really have enough experience with it. And I think that ultimately that's, you know, one of the big things there. So, and I've talked to a lot of successful people too, especially people that came from maybe middle class families and then were able to make larger amounts of money. They did it kind of, you know, they did the thing they wanted to do without really telling people about it. And you want to kind of tell people about it more, you know, after you kind of achieve it. And the thing too that a lot of people have talked about too is like, you know, when you get to those higher echelons, when you start to get more successful, people are going to start expecting you to pay for stuff. Everybody's going to ask you, you know, for a favor, that type of stuff too. So, you know, obviously, like you mentioned too, like life is hard no matter what. There's no issue that money can't at least improve. But there's, if you're not disciplined, if you're not careful, there are issues that could come with kind of having money. So you got to be careful with it in terms of that aspect as well. So I think, you know, ultimately, the people that like, if you take somebody's advice, usually their advice, from my experience, I'd say like 95% of the time, that's advice that will make you end up being more like them. And that could be a good thing if you want to be like this person, but if you want to be different than them, taking their advice may not be kind of the best pathway for you. I think whenever you're trying, the bottom line here, I think whenever you're trying to accomplish something, don't really tell people what you're trying to do unless they're somebody who already accomplished it, unless they're an expert in that field. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I always like I think about it too. It's when I had like 20,000 subscribers, I felt like the need to tell it. Oh, look at me. I've, you know, now I'm almost at 50. I don't want to tell anyone anything. You know, and it's weird. It's like you reach this level of eternal success. Like if I meet someone in the street and they ask me what I do, it's very rare I'm going to say that I'm a YouTuber, or they'll go watch my YouTube channel. And you find that weird, right? At first, I have to feel out the person. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to look pompous. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to come across like I'm better than somebody else. And the other way around, sometimes I don't want someone knowing what I do in my neighborhood. Because what if they follow me around? You know what I mean? I'm just, when it gets pretty serious and you actually do start making something of yourself, you actually become a lot more quieter than you realize. It's funny. And because you've reached an eternal, when you reach an eternal goal, there's such a really, really good feeling. Like there really is. Like when you worked hard for something for a long time and you hit a place where you've hit it. Like and you're ready for your next goal. Like you can check that off. Like I've hit, whatever money you wanted to make, or you maybe started a business and it ran for a certain amount of years that you felt like it was worth it. It was working, and there's and I owe it to God too, a connection to God. And then you and God know, you know what I mean? And then through God, you can help others. And that's really what I love about it the most. Like I remember when I first started hitting some big trades, my business was going real well. It was about 2.5 years ago. It was my sister's birthday. We hung out, and it was like the first time that like I went to the waiter for 9 people. And I was like, hey man, just, and I was able to buy everybody dinner without thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like the whole time I put my card in with everyone else. And that's when I knew life had changed for me. Like I could start kind of just hooking my friends and family up. We go places and they'd be like, oh, let me pay. And I'd just be like, listen, like I had a great night of trading. Things are going well for me. You know what I mean? You don't have to do that, And I was, I'm not a huge Andrew Tate fan, but I flipped through Twitter and him the other day, and he's like, I love being rich so I can help my people that I love. Like, and I'm all about that. You know what I mean? Like if I buy a new car, it's really not for me. It's so I can drive my mom in it. And so my kids can like it. Like, so my friends can say, oh, this is fun. It's like, there's something about, bringing people in, or you can bring them on vacation and not worry about putting more people on the plane, stuff like that. Like, that's why I really like, when I dream of being wealthy and getting, getting higher up in success, like I dream about like the smiles on all the people's faces and the memories we can have and the places I can bring them. That really motivates me. And I think your why, super important, right? If your why is just, I want to get rich, it's like, that can only bring you so far. Like you'll get there, and then what? Like you say, you'll turn back to the drugs, back to something strange.
Exactly.
There'll be some type of, anxiety in there that'll pull you away. But if you stay focused and disciplined with a good intention, you should be able to be able to do it for a pretty good amount of time and create some longevity, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you're not disciplined, that's like the main thing. If you don't have any discipline and you run into a lot of money, that could kind of enable you to do more drugs, to party more, to do all of these kind of things. But if you're disciplined, it absolutely can help you. I mean, in terms of money buying happiness, like if you're struggling to pay bills, if you're unhappy because you're struggling to pay bills, you're struggling with these things, money will definitely make you happy, at least temporarily. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But if you already have some money and you're not really struggling to pay bills, you have all the necessities there, but you're not that disciplined, and then you make more money, that's where it potentially could make things a little bit worse. It'll make you more of what you already are. Like if you're generally already a good person, it will probably, like you were saying, helping your family, being altruistic, it'll make you more of that. But
Mhm.
if you're kind of a bad person, if you're a nihilistic person, I mean, it could make you more of that. And we see that with a lot of these billionaires too, that kind of go crazy and, do a lot of illegal things. I mean, now we saw today CZ looks like, I don't know if he's going to go to jail out of this, but they're going into a settlement. He's stepping down as, CEO. And it seems like all these freaking, big crypto guys, SPF, a lot of them, and, the Kraken guy, Jesse Powell, I believe he's under fire now. So, we look at a lot of these big, billionaire people, and a lot of them, I mean, there's a different debate on it. I know some of the people, a lot of people on the left will say like all these
This
billionaires
would be good
are,
for the
they're
comments. It'll be like, "Yo, we love CZ. How dare you?" Yeah, I know
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
Well, I don't know. I don't follow it that closely. I'm more of a charts guy. But I mean, when you look at like a lot of, there's certain people that will say like, look at all these billionaires. They all have done kind of something unethical to get there. And I mean, I don't necessarily believe that. I don't think Elon Musk really did anything that bad. I mean, I think there's different ways, different kind of pathways there, and it kind of becomes more towards power. But I mean, you look at controversies with Bill Gates and all this stuff. I mean, it
Stage.
can mess with your mind a little bit. And I mean, even people in lower areas who just went from nothing to being worth maybe $10 million, like it can mess with your head a little bit. It definitely can.
Well, like a lot of things I like to watch on YouTube, right? Everyone is years ago was like the documentaries of people that hit the lottery and ended up just like in shambles. Like they won 200 million, and it really just it was all right for a certain
Yeah.
amount of time, and then it eventually actually completely destroyed them. Right, lack of discipline. I used to want to be way wealthier when I was younger, maybe in your age, and it didn't happen for me. And I went through some depression for that, and now I realized I wasn't ready, man. I didn't think I didn't have your maturity that you have now. I was still pretty crazy and running around, but like, that, you know, having a base, having that focus and discipline creates the intention, right? Which leads to, a far more better acquisition of success and less reckless behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Exactly.
with that being said, Kraken did get that's one of the topics today is Kraken was accused by the SEC, basically commingling, right? I guess they're trying to say, the way they custody funds. The thing is, if we're able to regulate cryptocurrency fully, then we could regulate the custody of it. And then there would actually be forms, right? Fill out these forms, show how much is here, and they
Yeah.
could actually do it properly. So like when you ask the SEC of Ethereum's a security, and we still can't get a straight answer to this day, like, which is pretty interesting.
Right.
To the same guy who literally 2 years later is on camera talking about how Ethereum isn't a security to his class. It makes you wonder, like, that's why I'm always like, it makes us question their intention, right? Because there doesn't seem like consistency and focus and discipline. Like, I don't see consistency there, right? I see, just kind of picking and choosing and trying to really, I don't know, using the power to put people down. At the same time, like you said, maybe they were commingling and we don't know too. So it also creates a gray area where, we can't fully define if the person was or wasn't doing something criminal, if they're being picked on, or if it really is, like if it's government outreach, or are they someone that really needs to be curtailed, like that they could be hurting the populace, right? So if we had more defined rules, we could be more clear too about what actually happened, but because we don't have defined rules,
Yeah.
we can't really, there's too much gray area for us to decide. And that creates, again, people that don't trust the government over that, right? Because then there's going to be all those people like, oh, they're just picking on them. And maybe they're not. Like, maybe they're actually helping us, but it would be better if we had clarity in that situation. Do you ever, think about running for office, or is there any like idea in your mind, another group of party being, do your friends and people talk in your generation, like, do you guys love this two-party system, or do you guys want to change? Like, how do you guys look at it?
Oh man, so yeah, I mean, in terms of office, I mean, oh man, running for office. I mean, that's like if you want a nice way to be miserable, I think it's a great idea. But I mean, yeah, that's tough. I mean, in terms of everybody knowing your name, everybody, because it's just you're running for office. It's literally so many people's literal job to just find dirt on you and just talk crap about you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in that aspect. And I see kind of, I've read Ray Dalio's book on kind of principles for a changing world order. He talks about a lot of populism, and we're seeing a ton of populism, in the last kind of, obviously since Trump, tons of populism on both sides. Trump's obviously a populist. You got the other sides, people like AOC, that's populism. I mean, I'd say RFK Jr. to a certain extent, that running as an independent, that's a certain level of populism, because a lot of controversial views to the average person. He's polling close to 20% right now, which could lead him as like on the debate stages in the next presidential election debates, which would be pretty wild. You also have Joe Manchin potentially running as independent. So you're seeing a lot of division, you're seeing a lot of populism, and you're seeing a lot of kind of a lack of focus here. And a lot of division, and that's probably going to continue. And I think, I'll give you my view. I think Trump's got a very good shot of winning. I think he probably will win. And I think that'll probably lead to, I think regardless of who wins, you're going to see more division, more of a backlash on both sides. And kind of as, let's say, the empire gets less unified and more divided, and individual states kind of gain more power, as we're seeing a little bit in how things are moving, especially with the tax discrepancies. I mean, if you live in Florida versus living in like New York City or San Francisco, your tax burden is so much less. Even, they didn't have those city taxes in San Fran and New York City many years ago. The state income taxes were also less many years ago. It was more of a unified country. Now you go from California to Florida, it's like being in a different country. It wasn't
Yeah,
like that 20,
it's
30 years
crazy.
ago. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that ultimately, I mean, it's going to take many years for like a new empire to emerge. People are saying China, who knows? But I think we're more on the divisive kind of path here. Not to be all doom and gloom. I mean, I think
No,
it's
no,
generally
no.
kind of good
I think
for,
that's how things change,
yeah,
right? Like they get
yeah,
shaken up and then we see the news. So like we have to have this kind of push
yeah,
and pull, right? If everything was the same, it would be the same. So like there always
sure,
is a, there's always a uncomfortability when we tend to move into even positive change, right? Uh, one thing I wanted to bring up that I
yeah.
saw too on an article here by the Daily Huddle, the macro indicator suggesting Bitcoin rally is getting started, and it's like a bigger signal, right? And that's according to an ex Goldman Sachs executive. And I'm going to lead this into another question. Do you see 50K by Christmas? Are we going to get a Santa rally? And what's your thoughts on Bitcoin's price basically like a week before the halving? And do you even have a suggestion for maybe the high of the market of the bull run?
Oh man, so yeah,
What
if
advice
anybody
would
knew
you
the
give?
answer to all those
Yeah, yeah,
questions,
yeah.
they'd be a multi-millionaire pretty
I just
quickly. But I
put you
mean,
on the spot, seeing kind of how
ultimately,
what your
I
brain comes
think
up with. Yeah.
what's I didn't catch what was that? I
I'm
didn't
just like
hear
putting you
the
on the
last.
spot to see what your brain comes up with because I find you creative
Yeah,
and interesting. So I'm
yeah,
wondering
yeah,
what
yeah.
you come
No,
up with.
no, they're great. Yeah, awesome. But yeah, ultimately, if I had to guess, I don't think 50K is very likely by the end of the year. Pre-halvening, I think that's a decent goal. I think we're going to see more. Like my main opinion here, and I'll just show you my chart. This would be a good place to kind of show a chart to back some of this stuff up here.
Mhm,
And let's just look at the Bitcoin chart. I just want to go on my not a marked. Let's just go on the all-time history index right here.
mhm,
This
mhm,
will load here. Let's look at the weekly. And my view basically is that I think 40K is a really good goal ultimately for the end of the year, kind of pre-halvening. Maybe we could get into, 50K. A lot of people are saying 50K. It's like one of those big numbers when a lot of people start saying 50K. Usually that wouldn't happen. And we're not that far off the all-time high here. I mean, 69K to like
yeah. There's not a
37K. I
lot
mean,
of resistance either. I mean,
we're hitting a
like
big area too. So if we do look at my comparison to is I like to look at history. This bull market here in 2013, April was the first high, similar to 21, and then November was the second high, end of November, similar to 21. Your bottom was a little bit later here, it was January. But then after that, you generally just gradually came up. You gradually came up into the end of 2017. So if we look at 4-year cycle, that would give us the end of kind of 2025 gradually coming up. So I generally think you will kind of just keep gradually coming up. Now, the $1 million question here is what happens? Do we go straight up to 40K? Do we reject there? Then do we come down? I mean, how is this going to look into 2025?
yeah.
And where could we end up? I think we could get, if you look at diminished returns here, because we get diminished returns. So looking at this low to this high, you got about 100x in this bull run. This was the crazy one that kind of really put Bitcoin on the radar. This bull run, you got about a 20x, I believe. Yeah, almost a 20x, I believe. So if we look at that, that was 1/5 of the returns. So if we get 1/5 of the 20x, that would bring us to around 400 to 500%. That's 80K, potentially up to the high end, 100K. We could get higher. We absolutely could get higher than that area. But just looking at diminished returns, looking at what this market has given us through the patterns here, would bring me somewhere close to 100K. I'm not saying you can't go above 100K, but I think a new all-time high is very likely. I think 80K to 120K, that kind of range is really big. I mean, especially, given the market cap of Bitcoin, given if you were somebody fortunate enough to buy, between 15K to 30K, 90K to 100K is a great return for an asset with a market cap this large. For Ethereum, we could absolutely get more here. And I think that, it's impossible to say what's going to happen kind of pre-halving. I think we're gradually going to trend up. We may have downsides, pullbacks 30%, pullbacks 20%, pullbacks, but I think we're generally going to come up. I think 40K is a good goal for pre-halving. 50K, just so many people talking about 50K. I feel like it's a little bit too optimistic.
Did the same thing today on my last stream. I was like, because everyone wants 50K. You usually don't get what everybody wants. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
There's also a talk that there won't be diminishing returns. It's going to be the super cycle. And, people like to run with that idea, and ETF and, world governments, and it's going to change and we're going to see an even bigger move to the upside. I mean, sometimes I draw that logarithmic chart and kind of make a rising wedge that could break out parabolically, but I'm still under the, everyone's saying 250,000, like, and maybe I'm more conservative too, but I'm more like maybe 110, 120, you know what I mean? And that's just because me and you were both a little damaged from like everyone screaming 100K last time and we never got there. So like, we're both kind of like, I'm a little, it makes me a little more reserved than I was in the last bull runs, Now I'm not selling at the end of this run anyway. Like I'm holding Bitcoin for 10, 20 years. So like, I don't plan on ever taking returns at that point anyway. So I'm not, but I am going to sell every single altcoin that I own. You know what I mean? I'm not long-term holding Cardano, even if I believe in it. Even I always say people, you can be right and still wrong at the same time. And what I mean by that is like I picked Cardano at 2 cents. I wrote it up and got back in at 8 cents, and I'm going to ride it up again. But I thought when I first bought it, it was a 10-year hold and it was the greatest thing, but like it just you can hold it more than a year, pay, and pay like less percent capital gains, not pay short term. And see, to me, it's just like it's kind of moronic to hold an asset that gets overvalued to the point of no return. But at the same time, like I do believe it's a company that's going to be here 10 years from now. But the Bitcoin cycle just creates too much, craziness, and it just really the prices just get really overvalued. And I heed that to everyone. So like you'll be right, like you'll pick the right project, but like you can be wrong by not selling it at the right time. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I found like that was me before. Like I was right. Like I definitely had a good call for Cardano, but should have definitely sold most of it at $1.31. You know what I mean? So I learned my lesson the second time, and I was able to sell half at that $3 level. But it's thank God I did. And then I got more Cardano now, right? And even with paying, and another thing, I used to worry about the taxes so much I wouldn't do it. I'd be in Phantom or something, I'd be up $100,000 from $5,000, and I'd say, well, but I don't want to pay the 30%. I want to pay short-term capital gains, and then ended up limping out with 50 grand and still paying the short-term. You know what I mean? So I've learned to not everyone. That's the first question when beginner traders like, what about taxes? I'm like, I remember when I first hired like a serious accountant, and I came in and was like, but what about? And he was like, how about you make before he looked at me, he's like, how about you make the money first? Then we'll worry about what to do after that. You know what I mean? Like, let's get you to that next level, and then you can start worrying about what else you want to do about taxes. So I always tell every beginner trader, like, just learn how to trade and focus on trading and focus on paying yourself. You know what I mean? And all the dream-like stuff and the worries and the fear, like, leave that at the door. Focus and discipline on your trades at hand. If you're up 5 or 6x, and you believe in the project, I still would take, not financial advice, but me personally, I would take some profit. You know what I mean? But what's your take on that? Like, if you had a long-term hold that you want a 10, 50x, are you going all the way, or halfway through, are you taking something, Because I've done both, like Caspo, like I really want to hold long term, but there's other things that I'd rather, like, I mean, towards the end of the rally, but there's other things that I want to probably get in and out of throughout the rally,
Yeah, so I think that
It's a little bit of a loaded question.
ultimately, I think, yeah, Well, no, I think that ultimately, if you're buying really small caps, like there's a lot of really small caps that jump up and do crazy stuff. That's more of, on the riskier side. Those I wouldn't be concerned at all about paying taxes. Like if you get 5 or 10x, I mean, just take the money and run. Who cares about the taxes? You made money, There's so
Yeah.
many people that don't make anything in this game. But for more of the like stuff that I would hold long term, such as Cardano, such as Polkadot, such as Avalanche, and a few others, Matic too, Ethereum, obviously. I think buying now and holding about over that year to 2 years is a great strategy. If you hold over a year, that's long-term capital gains, which is a lot better. And if you live in a state that doesn't have state income tax, you don't have to worry about that either. So that lessens the tax burden a lot there. So I think that's a really good strategy, holding at least a year in that aspect. If you're getting in when it's going parabolic, which would most likely be the end of 2024 or early 2025, that's where I would not care all about paying, short-term capital gains taxes. I would just take the money. And yes, taxes suck. Nobody wants to pay taxes, but I mean, that's what you kind of have to do. You kind of have to obey the law. Don't fight the government. And if you want to avoid paying taxes, I mean, maybe move to Dubai. Maybe,
Yeah.
I think you have to give up your citizenship for that. You may not want to do that. Or Puerto Rico, there's loopholes there. Usually they're not worth it unless you're making at least hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. The other bright thing about taxes too is I believe, I mean, I know people would kind of laugh at this, but you are paying into the system. You are going to get more Social Security, when you're older, more if there's any left with the tax. That's the one kind of positive with the tax burden there. And I mean, if you do earn more income, you could get a bigger mortgage. You could get more loans, further on if you wanted to invest in real estate, invest in other things. I mean, if you have a business and you wrote literally everything off and you come home with a salary of 40 grand, you're not getting much of a mortgage if you want to invest in real estate. So you have more leverage if you do put down that you earn more money. So there are some benefits to that, but bottom line, I think meme coins, stuff that's just small caps that are just pumping, take the money and run. Who cares about the taxes? You made money. For stuff that's larger market cap, stuff that, I think has a very good probability of doing well, such as Cardano, Ethereum in the next 2 years, that I would hold on to at least a year. So yeah.
Amazing, man. I love this. I'm gonna end with one last question. Um, what makes you tick, man? When you wake up in the morning, what's your first intention for the morning? Like, how do you start your day, and how do you complete your day? Like, how do you bookend the beginning and the end? Because for me as a trader, like, I always have to I would do like a meditation or a prayer or go outside and just you look at the charts a lot. Me and you have similarities in that case. We probably look at the screens a lot together. I'm sure you might just analyze
Yeah.
while people watch a game. I might have the chart on. Like I'm always somewhere in the chart. You know what I mean? And like, how do you balance that and keep your mind clear? Basically, is the main question there.
Oh man, so yeah, when I wake up, I mean, I'm not always perfect about this. I try to like meditate for 10 minutes. I try to take 10, 20 minutes, drink some water with some lemon and salt in it. That could definitely add to a little bit more energy in the morning, get those electrolytes going. I mean, typically I do walk outside, go on my balcony, get a little bit of sunlight. That's what Andrew Huberman says. That's what all the science says to do to kind of get your circadian rhythm right. Although I'm not always, completely good at this. I like to eat food right when I wake up. Like I'm always hungry. I like to eat eggs right when I wake up. I don't know if that's that's what I do kind of, and then I'll go over to the charts. I'll probably be looking at my phone sometimes while I'm cooking eggs, usually in the morning. Before sleep, oh man, that could be so sometimes I'll do not like one of my friends has a business where he does like we do ice baths and sauna, and we do it like later in the day kind of, and then I'll head home and kind of sleep after that. And that's like a perfect thing if you're going
That's
like doing a
great.
sauna before you go to sleep. It helps
I
so
love that.
much. I have it if you have access to that. I mean, also there's a sauna in the building I live in, so I mean that's kind of good. That's a good way to kind of, and it's healthy too, sweat out some of the toxins, and then you'll be tired. I think it definitely could help your sleep there. That's a good technique there. But ultimately, I mean, I'm not always good about this, but I've tried, and I think I would definitely be even more productive if I meditated like 10 minutes upon waking up and 10 minutes before going to sleep. That's a discipline thing, especially with all the
Crazy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, with all the stimulation in our lives, you always want to look at your phone, go on, scrolling, all that stuff. But 10 minutes when you wake up, 10 minutes you go to sleep. A lot of people swear by that. So if you have the discipline, I would recommend, I think you could see if you can't just do it once, you got to do it for weeks to really notice the difference. But if you
Yeah.
could do that, I think that'll benefit you a lot.
I had like severe ADHD, lack of focus, and I remember I started going into like a dark room completely and sitting there,
Mm,
and it was almost like the ADHD with this horse that wanted to run, and it was always running. So when I was running around, I couldn't notice it as much, but when I was able to dull all my senses down, like I could find it when it really began. Like I could meditate on like where the actual synapses in my brain wanted to, and I'd be like, oh, that's the area that I need to work on, and like through meditation, I was able to seclude myself to find those little pinpoints, right? And I'm still not perfect, right?
mm,
I still have that, but that was the when I started doing it enough, that was when I was like, oh, this is why people do it. Like I can actually fine tune little parts of my brain that I never would have been able to even see because I had too much going on, right? It's like it's kind of like you
right.
have a problem in your computer and you got to take away each thing to find out what it is. And by you slowly isolating, you can kind of figure out the issue, you know? I found that was awesome, man. Evan, I'm really thank you for coming on my channel again. I really appreciate it. I want to have you on at least every couple of months, if not more, just to kind of keep the relationship going. I know I'll see
Awesome,
you.
man.
I can't wait for Bitcoin where we're going Nashville. So I'm pretty sure you'll be there. And
Oh
I'll
yeah.
see you before that. And again, I'll be going to Miami probably before that. And I'll always hit you up. But I really
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
you coming here and spending time with me. And it's cool that you're up in New England, man, in my part of town. So have a great time with your family. Try to stay off the charts if you can for a couple of days, but you probably won't if you're like me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show, man. And where can people find you? Just if they're new, some people, my channel is actually starting to get pretty good buzz, and let them find out where they can find you, where they can check out what you're doing, and what you post on Twitter and stuff like that.
Yeah, the YouTube is the main thing, youtube.com/Evan Aldo. Yeah, /Evan Aldo, and then the Twitter is at real Evan Aldo, and then there's a free Discord community and a paid Discord community. The links are in all my. It's the Evan Aldo Discord. We call it the Aldo Empire Discord. That's a pretty good community. We got a lot of good people in there. So those are two main things though. Twitter and YouTube are the main ones. I post on. I keep it simple. Try to do live streams. 5 days a week. A little bit less with the holiday right now. Try to do pre-recorded. Updates as well. So always trying to do as much as I can. Always trying to learn new things. There's just so much to learn here, and always appreciate coming on here, man. Always appreciate you. You're one of the hardest working people in crypto, and it's an honor, honestly, an honor to be on your channel. So thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, man, God bless you, man. And I'll see you again. Have a great time with your family again, and keep rocking,
Yeah,
bro. Keep rocking.
thanks so much, man. Bye.
You said.